Welcome to the BRSCC Mazda Super Series. I'm Lyndsay Close and I'm going to be taking you through this weekend here in the beautiful Cheshire countryside of Oulton Park. After our last weekend at Cadwell Park, we saw Josh Jackson tumble down in the rankings after a huge off, which led the gap wide open for his competitors, including his season rival Jake Bailey. However, Josh has come back this weekend with a fighting spirit and he's put it back on pole for the beginning of race one. So speaking of which, I'm going to hand it over to Andy to run us through the rest of the grid.
Yes, thank you very much, Lyndsay. It's been a fascinating season so far in the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Super Series, and it continues here at Oulton Park with Jackson and Bailey together on the front row once more. Sam Bailey is back on row 2 with Simon Fleet, ahead of Simon Orange and George Grant, then Jeremy Crook and Patrick Collins, the fourth row for this first race of the day. Then it's Jeff Gurrier and James Kell ahead of Matt Pickford and Simon Wood. Pepe Planeta makes his debut ahead of Richard Breland, then Xavier Brook and Russ Lyndsay. Liz Walton and Andy Fagan make up the back row of this 18-car field, the biggest grid that we've had all season long. It's great to see more drivers getting behind this new for 2018 Mazda MX-5 Super Series. No points on offer, remember, for this. It is just a series of races, and Josh Jackson will be a bit disappointed at that, because with his 5 wins and a further visit to the podium as well, he would be the championship leader if we were scoring points. However, Jake Bailey, although he's only scored 3 race wins, has not missed the podium all year. 9 races and 9 podium finishes. Can he continue that here at Oulton Park? The lights go out. Let's find out who at least gets down towards Old Hall Corner in the race lead. It's going to be fairly close, but the white car with the black bumper on the inside line is Josh Jackson, and he will lead them through Old Hall Corner for the first time. Matt Pickford there running side by side with that looked like Pepe Planeta, and a spin, unfortunately for us, Lyndsay. He is just going to make very light contact with the tyre wall, but should be able to rejoin without too much damage. The rest of the field pile their way down through Cascades for the first time. And there is the midfield battle we were just watching. On board now with Patrick Collins, looking back at the 101 car of Simon Woods. Oh, and contact between Planeta and Pickford, and they're both off onto the grass. Planeta back across the road, bang into the barriers, and that was not the way to make your debut in the series. I don't quite know what started that all off, but there was some sort of contact, and more contact. Now there's another car off going into Shell, and was that Jake Bailey? I think that might have been Jake Bailey off into the barriers, and that would be big drama indeed for one of the pre-race favourites, but that is a fairly sizable shunt. It is. It's Jake Bailey off into the foam barriers, and look at that though, because they're foam, because they're not tyres, he's able to rejoin with minimal damage, but a long way behind the rest of the field, and an awful lot of damage done to the circuit furniture. So Jackson leads the way, Sam Bailey second, Simon Orange is third, Simon Fleet is fourth, and fifth place for Jeremy Crook from 7th on the grid. He's made good progress. Then it's George Grant in 6th, ahead of the 33 car of James Kell, as they descend upon Hislops and Knickerbrook for the first time. But that was a dramatic first half a lap or so of racing, with 3 separate incidents inside the first 3 corners. That's rather spaced the field out a little bit as they go up towards Druids for the first time. Let's hope that we will not require a safety car for any of those incidents. We may well require one to pick Pepe Planeta's car up from the Lakeside Straight. There's the 101 car of Simon Woods, but the lead battle is very close together indeed there, because Josh Jackson, we may have lost Jake Bailey from the race, but Sam Bailey is still very much going strong, running in 2nd place and looking to try and get ahead of Josh Jackson. Josh will be looking for his 6th win of the year, but perhaps more significantly in a way, his first podium finish since Snetterton, because in all 3 races at Cadwell Park last time out, Josh Jackson missed out on finishing on the podium. He had 3, by his standards, abysmal races, a 4th in race 1, a 5th in race 2, and another 4th in race 3, but there were various dramas along the way, including, as Lyndsay alluded to pre-race, that off that he had in the first race whilst battling for the race lead with Tom Collins, and it all went wrong, and he ended up in the barriers and dropped an awful long way down the order. Back with Patrick Collins now though, he's looking back at Simon Woods as they head out of Cascades for the 2nd time, and there is the effect of the slipstream there, as Simon Woods is able to gain a lot of speed down the straight, but there are then yellow flags out as a result of Planeta's car that's still stricken at the side of the road. Matt Pickford's car, he's managed to pull that off onto the island hairpin loop, so that's out of the way, but Planeta's car needs moving, and therefore no overtaking at that part of the circuit. I think they're going to leave the Recticel barriers just to the inside of the road as a further deterrent maybe for corner cutting down at that part of the circuit, the corner that you would tend to be exceeding track limits at. Back through the Britain chicane now. The tyre stacks that have long been a feature of the Oulton Park chicanes gone for 2018, replaced instead by floppy markers, which don't have quite the same effect when it comes to trying to put drivers off from dipping 2 wheels over the curbs. The big sausage curbs, though, that you'll see just here as they turn into hislops. If you run over those, you can do significant damage to the car, so that is certainly a deterrent. But those floppy markers a little bit less damaging than a stack of tyres that would usually be positioned on the apexes of those chicanes. But a lot of the drivers thus far in this race have managed to wipe any of those markers out, which is a surprise to say the least. Leaders though already down towards Lodge. There is Jeff Gurrier in the 71 car running in the Masters portion of the race. Quite a few of the drivers, in fact, over a certain age in this series, running within the Masters contingent. Simon Fleet is one of them. Simon Orange, though, ahead of him, is the lead Masters contender in this race. So that is for the lead of class, essentially. Third place overall, but the lead Masters position. At the front of the field, Josh Jackson getting away now from Sam Bailey, who possibly has made a mistake on that second lap of the race, because he's dropped back fairly considerably, actually, into the clutches almost of the Simon Orange and Simon Fleet battle. The two Simons have been together pretty much all season long. They've done lots of great battling with each other, and there they are. The orange and black 67 car is Simon Orange, and the blue and pink is Simon Fleet behind him, car number 21. Third and fourth at the moment, catching the second place man, Sam Bailey. Back with Simon Woods, lots of Simons in this series, turning his way through Cascades, chasing a slightly wayward Patrick Collins in front of us, who did not make friends with the apex at Cascades. It's a very difficult corner, that one. You're braking downhill, it's bumpy as well on the entrance, it's cambered on the way through the corner, but then the camber disappears on the exit. Very easy to understeer wide and get out onto the grass coming out of Cascades. Many a great racing driver over the years have found themselves bouncing their way down the Lakeside Straight, unable to find a gap in the traffic to get back on the road. It's this third place battle, though, heading back out of Britain's over Hilltop. And you can see that Josh Jackson, with the demise of Jake Bailey, is starting to really make hay at the front of the field. Jake is still running, though, I must say, so he's still circulating. He has rejoined. Matt Pickford and Pepe Planeta, as we saw, pulled off the side of the road. We've also lost Xavier Brooks somewhere, so whether he was involved in that incident, I'm not too sure. He was lined up around that part of the grid, so it is possible that he was caught up in that opening lap skirmish, one of several opening lap skirmishes. Russ Lyndsay as well continued after his spin at the first corner, but not a part of these battles that are going on a bit further up the order. Orange looks to have just got himself away from Simon Fleet slightly, but then the slipstream starts to come into effect again, and Orange just has to drive defensively. Just a bit of a precaution there into Lodge. I'm not sure Fleet was really close enough to have a go up the inside, but Simon wasn't taking any chances, covered the middle ground, but that compromises your exit speed slightly, and so Simon Fleet is back in the tow again across the start-finish line, and this time he probably is close enough to have a go, so Orange will really have to go defensive in towards Old Hall Corner. Fleet takes the wide line in. Now watch for him to try and carry more momentum out of the corner, really fires the car at the apex, but actually didn't really do it quite right, and so he's not able to launch an attack down the avenue and in towards Cascades, and in fact he's been caught now by Jeremy Crook, so this is about to become a three-way fight for third. But as they're starting to trip over each other a little bit, so Sam Bailey is escaping further up the road. George Grant, the series sponsor, is not that far back either. The Clapham North liveried car running fairly well here at Oulton Park. George Grant, who his best finished bin of the year so far. He wasn't at Cadwell Park last time out, was George. He was at Snetterton and picked up a couple of top tens, but this, I reckon, might just about be the best that he's run, certainly since the start of the season at Brands Hatch. And if he can get on terms with his podium battle, who knows what result could be in the offing for him. Back through Britain's, using all of the curb there, Simon Orange, and that just hurts your traction up and over the hill, and of course you're accelerating steeply uphill there, so every mile an hour makes a big difference at that part of the circuit. That's one of the key challenges of Oulton Park, is that not only is it hilly, but a lot of these hills, the inclines in particular, are on the exits of corners. There's another one coming up here now. You come out of Knickerbrook, which is quite a tricky off-cambered right-hander, and then you're climbing all the way up Clay Hill, underneath the bridge, and in towards Druid. So if you get a bad exit from Knickerbrook, it can really hurt your performance all the way up to this part of the circuit. The double apex right-hander at Druids really is one of the most technically demanding circuits in the country, Oulton Park, but it's actually deceptively quick. And you can see corners like Druids Corner there, you're attacking that at near enough 100 miles an hour. It's a very, very rapid racetrack indeed. Jeremy Crook looking to try and make rapid progress up the order there as he had a look at the inside of Simon Fleet, but nothing doing into Lodge. Simon in the unenviable position, though, of having to try and attack Simon Orange whilst also defending from the car behind. Jeremy Crook doing well at the moment to hold on to that position. Leader goes back through there. The gap continues to climb now between Jackson and Bailey. Then it's Orange, Fleet and Crook, 3rd, 4th and 5th. Nose to tail coming out of Old Hall Corner. Back down the avenue through the right-hand kink at Denton's, and then that really just adds to the complications of lining yourself up for Cascades with a right-hander that is easy flat out, but it's over a blind crest, and it's quite easy to lose the rear of the car as you drop down into Cascades. Look at the dirt on the road down the lakeside straight. To looking up the inside there, Jeremy Crook, he wasn't really close enough. The yellow flags, I should say, have gone in now, so they're leaving Pepe Planetta's car where it was, but they will. All of the drivers know it's there now, so there's no need to keep the yellow flags out all race long. Back out of Shellhall's corner, there you go. It's notoriously difficult to overtake at Oulton Park. There are a couple of places where you can do it. Lodge Corner, the final corner, is arguably the best place to make a move. The next sequence of corners down Hislops, if you get a really good run over the hill, you can have a dive up the inside, but in such evenly matched cars as these Mark III Mazda MX-5s, it is difficult to find a way through if the driver in front of you isn't willing to just roll over and let you go, which surprisingly enough doesn't happen all that often. So if Simon Fleet is going to find a way onto the podium here, for what would be the 3rd time this season, he's going to have to really get inventive. He slides the rear of the car coming out of Knickerbrook, but you can see there that loses him momentum up the hill, and whilst the slipstream will save him slightly, he is going to have to watch his mirrors, because Jeremy Crook is not a million miles back. In fact, he's a bit closer to Fleet now than Fleet is to Orange, so that is a graphic example there of how important it is to keep the momentum going out of the tight corners. Another tight corner coming up now, Lodge Corner. Fleet, although he's pulled away from Crook again because of that moment at Knickerbrook, he wasn't really close enough to attack Simon Orange, so he'll have to wait potentially another lap now until they get back down to Lodge before he can really make his move, although he's in the slipstream down towards Old Hall Corner, and this is a potential passing spot if you're really brave. It's nice and wide on the way in, and the natural line into the corner is to take a really wide late entry, which does leave the door open, but doesn't look as though the move was made this time. There's George Grant, James Kell and Jeff Gurrier, who are getting themselves together slightly, a bit further back. Back out of Old Hall they go, and James Kell is sort of in no man's land between the two. He's not quite close enough to George Grant to attack, nor is Jeff Gurrier really close enough to him to start applying the pressure. James Kell, who was another driver who didn't make the trip up to the northeast of the country last time out. We last saw him racing at Snetterton, where he was unable to get himself a top 10 actually, so if he can hold on to this position, James will get himself, I beg your pardon, he was 9th in race 3 at Snetterton, but this would still be his best finish of the year if he can hang on where he is. Jeff Gurrier behind, real Mazda MX-5 regular. He's been racing in the MX-5 Super Cup and now a Super Series for many a year, since its inception as Jeff Gurrier, one of the Porsche racing cars. This 3rd place squabble, well 4th place squabble really, is getting more and more entertaining as Jeremy Crook went from the extreme outside of the circuit back to the inside again in towards Hislops to try and out-psych Simon Fleet. He wasn't really close enough to make the move stick, he was just trying to distract the car in front. That little flash of colour in your mirrors, it's remarkable just how much that can put you off into the braking zone. It didn't put Simon Fleet off though, and so Jeremy, is going to have to try something different. Makes his way back in towards Druid's Corner. There you can see the gap back to Grant and Kell, and then Gurrier. And there is the Clapham North liveried car of George Grant. The series sponsors Clapham North, and good to see George continuing to support the series that again he has raced in for many a year now. Turns his way through Lodge, a bit wide there though, and you could hear the screech of tyres as he scrabbled to get himself back online. 3rd place battle crosses the line once more, but it's getting closer here between Grant and Kell. That mistake will have helped, and it will have given James a sense that maybe he can do something about George Grant after all. George had pulled away from him early on in the race, but now as we go into the final 3rd, the gap has really narrowed between the two of them. Back down into Denton's again. And James Kell not close enough here, but if he gets a good exit from this part of the circuit, then the longest straight on the track is coming up next, the run down Lakeside, and that's where the slipstream can really bunch everybody together. And although the dauntingly quick left-hander at Ireland is not an overtaking opportunity, the corner after is. If you through the catch fencing that's been erected up at Island Bend over the course of the winter, of a yellow flag. Now that means someone is off the road, and that's Jay Bailey again, isn't it? That fairly sure that's Jake Bailey who's gone off again at the same corner at which he came a cropper on lap 1, only this time he's beached it in the gravel trap. So Jake Bailey's race unfortunately goes from bad to worse. He'd already fallen right to the tail end of the field, and as the red mist descended and he tried to work his way back up the order, he's potentially made another error up at Shell, and Jake Bailey's race is now over, unfortunately. Here comes this battle though between Grant and Kell, and George really defends into his lops, skates a bit wide on the brakes as a result. Just about fiddles his way through the corner though, and you can see just how tight and technical that part of the circuit is. Grant holding on, but we're now building up towards Druids, and a good exit from here, and you could have a go down at Lodge, and that will be what's on James Kell's mind. Into Druids, let's watch the speed of the two cars as they turn their way through the right-hander. Double apex right-hander, it's that second apex that's the most important. Up and over the crest, the exit of the corner comes up to meet you rather abruptly, and he's in the slipstream down towards Lodge, and he has a look up the inside, but George Grant saw it coming, covers it off, and as long as he doesn't run too deep on the brakes, he should be able to hold on for a little bit longer. And of course, the longer that he delays James Kell, the closer Jeff Gurrier is getting. So it's a fascinating battle, that. Very similar, in fact, to this battle that we've got going on for third, where it looks as though Simon Fleet is the quicker of the three, but he's pinched in the middle. He can't go anywhere. He can't find a way past Simon Orange, and every time he tries to have a go, he ends up getting delayed, and so allowing Jeremy Crook to catch back up. So it's very easy on these in these sort of races at maybe somewhere like Oulton Park, which is, as I said, notorious for being tough to overtake at. It's very easy to look at this and think that it's a procession and everyone's just following each other around, but there's an awful lot going on inside the cockpits, and it becomes a real tactical battle as the drivers just try to figure a way through. And it's all right when you're somewhere like Silverstone, where you've got wide open spaces and you can essentially just drive up alongside somebody and overtake around somewhere like Oulton Park or Cadwell Park, where we raced last time out. It takes an awful lot more skill in many ways to find a way through, and it's all the more satisfying for the drivers when they do make a move stick, because they know they really had to work for it. Simon Fleet can sense a podium here as well. Of course, for Simon Orange, if he can hang on to this third place, it would be his first podium of the year. So there's a lot at stake for both drivers, and Simon Orange has really improved as the season's gone on, from a sort of 8th or 9th place driver at the start of the season. Here he is now fighting for podium positions on merit as well, because remember, he qualified 5th, so he qualified at the pointy end of the grid. Benefited a bit from Jake Bailey's off on the first lap, of course, but you know, he kept it on the road and Jake didn't, so it's still a worthy position to gain. There's Josh Jackson, meanwhile, don't forget about him, race leader, looking for his 6th win of the season, and he really does look in a league of his own now with the issues that Jake Bailey has had. Here's a nice battle coming across the line. That's the treble 9 car of Patrick Collins, and in behind him is the 101 of Simon Woods. These two started 8th and 12th respectively. They're running somewhere towards the back end of the top 10, I believe. So they are running as closely together now as they were right at the start of the race, on board with Simon. You get a sense of the speed that they build up now down the Lakeside Straight. This real roller coaster section of road. You can see those little humps and rises and falls in the track just as you're trying to set the car up for what I imagine could well be a flat out left-hander in Island Bend in these cars. Looks like that yellow flag's going to stay out for the foreseeable up at Shell. Don't think the marshals are going to be able to move Josh Jackson's car without a safety car, and rather than throw the safety car, they just keep the yellow flags at one part of the circuit, so the drivers have to slow down, but not excessively. The most important thing is that they don't overtake under the yellow flags, because that is a big no-no, and you'll get yourself in all sorts of bother with the clerk of the course if you start doing things like that. Just in front of those two is this ongoing battle between George Grant, James Kell and Jeff Gurrier. Still no change in the order, but they're very close together. In fact, I'd say they're closer now than they ever have been. And James Kell will be getting increasingly frustrated here, because I think he knows he's a bit quicker than George, just hasn't quite been able to find a way past him. Over Clay Hill they go again. We're getting into the closing stages of this race now as well. Look how much closer Simon Woods has got to Patrick Collins too, so Patrick will possibly have to start watching his mirrors here. Oh, he can't overtake at Druid, surely. No, Simon backed out of that one. Indeed, on to the final lap now goes Josh Jackson, so one more lap of the 2.7 mile Oulton Park International circuit goes the race leader, and having not finished on the podium since Snetterton, This will be a welcome return, not only to the podium, but to the top step of the podium, which is where he finished in all 3 races at Snetterton, which is why it was such a shock. He won 5 of the first 6 races of the year, did Josh Jackson. Only Jake Bailey was able to pip him to a race victory in the final race at Brands Hatch. But ever since then, he really did look dominant, but then Cadwell Park did not go his way. But with the issues for that man there, Jake Bailey, who he drives past once again, stricken the gravel trap up at Shell, Josh Jackson has been left to his own devices, generally speaking, in this one. Of course, for the next race, they start that one the way in which they finish this. So Jackson will be on pole, and Jake Bailey will have to come through from the back of the grid. That should be very entertaining for us to watch, though, as he tries to sort of pick his way forwards. But it's a long way to go to work your way right to the front of the field, and by the time you get there, this man may well have disappeared up the road, as he did in this one. Josh Jackson's never really been headed once Bailey went off, and he's now less than half a lap away from checkered flag number 6 of the season. Blissful isolation here, getting to enjoy the spectacular Cheshire countryside in glorious conditions today as well. These are the days where you're grateful that you don't have a roof over your head, albeit with the fireproof overalls and the helmet on, it will feel like you do. Josh Jackson comes out of the final corner, he sees the checkered flag, and he wins the first race of the day here at Oulton Park, round number 10 of the Mazda MX-5 Super Series. What's going to go on behind? Looks like the podium positions are fairly set, with Sam Bailey second and Simon Orange third, but this battle between George Grant and James Kell is still going, and George Grant just can't quite... James Kell, sorry, just can't quite get close enough to attack there. Oh, Grant's off! Oh, George Grant, bang, into the tyre wall. What on earth happened then? That was an enormous hit for George, who thankfully is moving around in the car, but how on earth did he manage that? He must have run wide on the exit of the corner, and that just speared the car back across the road. So confirmation of the result then. Josh Jackson wins the race, Sam Bailey second and Simon Orange third, then Jeremy Crook and Simon Fleet from James Kell 6th on the last corner, ahead of Jeff Gurrier 7th, Simon Woods 8th, Patrick Collins 9th, and Russ Lyndsay 10th. Then it's Andy Fagan and Liz Walton. George Grant a dramatic non-finish, so too Jake Bailey. We also lost Javier Brook, Matt Pickford, Pepe Planeta and Richard Breland.
Congratulations on the win on race 1, Josh.
Thank you, yeah, that was really good. I'd like to thank Brisky Racing, PC Cars and everybody for helping me out, Vortex Exhaust as well. It was definitely a tricky race, but we had a bit of battle with Jake. Unfortunately he went off, which was a bit of a shame, but no, it was alright, it was good.
Good, so any plans for race 2?
Yeah, hopefully it'll stay dry, but let's see what happens.
Brilliant, well we'll see you later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, cheers.
Sam, that's a fantastic result for race 1. I hear this is your best ever finish.
It certainly is, yeah, and I've got all the guys at Blink to thank for getting me there. They've worked tirelessly to get my car where it is, so I owe it to them, really.
So any predictions for race 2?
Race 2, obviously I'm starting from sec P2, so I've just got to do my best. We've got to see what the weather does. I'm not quite sure what that's going to do, so anyone's guess.
Well, congratulations. We'll see you later on.
Thank you.